Vin, you're up.
Hello, welcome to the Curious Marketer with Vin. I am Vin Messina, talking to other experts to help you better understand how to grow your business. Today I'm joined as part of this Fundamentals of Online Marketing series with Ammon Johns. Hello, Ammon, how you doing?
Very good, very good. In full width HD, you know.
It's not funny. He's making fun of me because about an hour ago I checked my equipment and it was all fine, and then I decided to download security software and my equipment is now not fine. So I'm coming to you live from my iPhone holding up in my hand. So anyways, to get on with the discussion, like any other business owner, Ammon and I, you are strapped for time. You have to run your business and you have to grow your business, and both of these things are full-time jobs. So the internet and the ability to market your business online has made things a bit easier by allowing you to be present 24/7. But really, sorry about that, has it made it that much easier? And what we're going to talk about today, well, let me just review session 1 and session 2. In session 1, we talked about the importance of developing a strategy for your business, setting some goals. Session 2, we talked about a critical piece of your marketing plan, and that is identifying your target, really understanding the people that you plan on having buy what you sell. So for today's session is really the setup for the entire series, the Fundamentals of Online Marketing, where we're really going to help you understand what it means to have an online presence and why it's so important for your business. So with that, Ammon, what is an online presence?
That's a great place to start. And for me, I think it's really important that we distinguish online presence from just being online. It's not just about visibility. It's not just about having a website. You're looking at several different things in combination to have an effective presence. A presence is a mixture of visibility, that people can find you, reputation, what they find about you, whether it's positive, negative, how it relates to them, and yet that third thing is all about the relationship that they have with this presence, how it relates to them, because there's a lot of things online most of us aren't interested in, and you need something that you can relate to. And putting those all together, that's what I mean by an online presence.
So it's a combination of things. It's not just a website, if you will, but it's engagement, it's a blog, it's social media, it's a bunch of things. It's being present. It's how people learn about you. It's how people learn about what you do, how you do it, and how other people think about you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the very simplest kind of online presence is if you've bought an ad in Yellow Pages and therefore you're in their online directory as well. That's the very simplest form of online presence. You are present somewhere.
So I asked you this question in the green room, and it's hilariously funny because I just learned this guy's name, and it's probably because I'm not much of a historian, but Tim Berners-Lee, 1991. He launched the web and the first web page. So is this when, at that point in time, things sort of took a turn, right, for businesses? This is when sort of the internet was invented, not by Al Gore, but it was invented. And at what point, though, did businesses sort of wake up and go, oh, well, you got something here?
It kind of depends on the businesses. After all, in some ways, people would say that the military complex is a business. And you know what? They're the ones responsible for the whole thing. The whole point of the internet was to create a communication network that could route around any problem. The idea of the internet is it's a way of communicating that can't be taken down. You can't take down one line, one pipeline anywhere and block calls. It routes around everything. So the internet itself was kind of a business decision. The academics soon got involved, and it was used for communication between academia. And most universities, they're businesses too in their way. The web was when things changed, but I would say before the web we were already starting to see e-commerce. We were seeing communication via email, which has been around for a long, long time. We would see occasionally people listing things on bulletin board servers that were for sale. The earliest forms of things like Craigslist were in the bulletin board servers.
Hmm.
And to an extent, I remember in Internet Relay Chat, the old IRC chat networks, people would have bots that could automatically serve files and things like that, and some of those were geared to take credit cards. So there was a form of e-commerce even before the web, but the web made it a lot easier.
Right. Yeah, I know it opened up the doors to, really the ability to be a global enterprise, even if you were local. I mean, you can communicate pretty effectively. Email is as a new way of communicating. The internet certainly is, it complicates communication, but it also makes it fairly easy. So websites were developed, and I know in the early days of websites, people viewed them as brochures. So to have an online presence, really what you had was just a few pages of pretty images and colors and styles and some text that describe what you do, what you do, or what you're all about, or what your business offers, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you think of it, email gave people the capacity to do what they've been doing with brochures and catalogue businesses years before. People can communicate with you via email, you can send out documents via email. So the whole of the catalogue business was entirely possible before the web. But the web gave us ways of keeping the document locally but making it display in much the same way for everyone, in theory.
Right. And now we have mobile. We're evolving even beyond, just getting set up online, and now people have to start worrying about mobile. I just saw that article about mobile apps, and that mobile apps have been sort of in the discussion for the last, I don't know how many years, 3, 4, 5, 7 years, anyways. And the internet keeps evolving, but now businesses have to worry about not just engaging an audience on a PC, but on all these different devices, like I'm talking to you now from my iPhone.
Yep. It's one of those things. I mean, the first time I was working with a business that worried about its mobile strategy was in 2002, because there were web-enabled phones then, and it was much more web-enabled rather than the true smartphones that we think of today. The
Right.
prices were cut down.
So as we consider and contemplate an online presence, really we do have to have a website. We're talking about the conversations and where we're showing up in terms of our presence, if you will, being there, engaging, whatnot. And now we're talking about reaching a mobile audience, which it could be an entirely different configuration, or it could just be a responsive website. One way or another, what people do, how they behave on each of these different devices, how people behave in terms of shopping for what you buy, all of this was changed in 1991, as progressively since 1991. All of
Yeah,
this has changed. The way people make decisions to buy just about anything, I think the internet has affected. The internet
yeah,
has completely changed and altered the buying procedure, the buying process, the buying journey of anybody that's buying anything. Is a matter of a click and discover, right?
exactly that. And there are so many offline businesses that are finding this, that they've got high street stores, and that's been their business model. Over here, famously, Woolworths went bust. Why did it go bust? Because it had been the sort of everything store. It had all the things that people might want. It was kind of the eBay or Amazon on the high street, but it couldn't actually compete with eBay or Amazon. And yeah, that was one of the first big casualties that I would say is 100% due to the internet. And you see high-end stores of all kinds where people will come in, try things. That's great. Now, let me go to the internet and see where I can find it cheaper. And
That's
this
exactly
is
right.
actually happening every single day.
Well, and there was a very visible progression with quote unquote brick and mortar businesses going to um, a portion of their business coming from an e-commerce type of a situation. Banks, bookstores, on and so forth. And Amazon definitely changed the landscape for books initially. With stores like Borders and whatnot. Borders had to launch their own, but the internet really, to me, when I think of what the internet is and why marketing is so important, I think more from the perspective of what it's allowed buyers to do versus what it's allowed marketers to do. And so it's an essential component to your overall marketing plan and your business plan, because it's just the way people buy. It's the way people find out about you, and it's incredibly important because this session to me is an overview of an online presence what does it mean, and why is it important? The why is what I think a lot of businesses don't understand. I still talk to a lot of local businesses. There's an air conditioning service guy in the town 3 towns over from me. He doesn't really have much of an online presence, and he rolls his eyes. And anytime I bring it up to him, he rolls his eyes. He says, I get all my business from referrals. It's like, well, but what are you missing? Because he doesn't really fully comprehend how the online presence is integrated into the overall marketing plan, into his whole business. He doesn't see how people around his community will maybe get a referral, and then they'll go and check him out on the web. And they gotta like what they see, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think businesses like that are especially vulnerable to this. I see it particularly in the construction industry, the smaller end, roof repairs, paving driveways, anything like that. They tend to rely on, okay, I've got a Yellow Pages listing, that will do it. Do you know what? I don't have a telephone directory in the house, and I haven't had for years. You know, I don't have that old book that I look through. I go straight to the internet. Now, a lot of those will bundle an internet presence on there, but we already know people don't go past the first page of search results very often.
Correct.
So if you aren't in those top few listings, you don't even get a look in. And how much is your one little ad in the Yellow Pages going to say about you? How many of the long-term keywords are going to be in there? Zero, none, nothing.
Exactly. Yeah, businesses still, believe it or not, people in the audience might be marketers or whatnot. They sort of think that this might be, common sense. I mean, who isn't on the internet? Who doesn't understand what an online presence is? But I talk to a lot of professionals. I just did a website for a dentist that has been in business for 20 years. Didn't have any web presence other than her name showing up in the standard directories. And, it's costing her because her competition has it, and you have to have it. I mean, she was successful to a point where she had a business, but she's by no means optimizing the performance of her business at all, not even close. So is it possible to have a business? Yeah. But if you want to take it to the next level, you really got to fully appreciate and understand all the different sections as as this entire series unfolds. Each one of these sections is really, really important for a small business to understand, because you just can't be all that you want to be if you don't have even the basics, and nowadays the basics aren't enough. Basics aren't getting it done. So that being said, one of the things that people sort of seem to think, and the reason why I put this segment after the intro, it's a segment on that book, Absolute Value. And the reason I put it here is because I think one of the biggest misconceptions today, not necessarily the way the internet and online marketing started, but today anyways, is that really it's all about the message that you're pushing out there. And this book, Absolute Value, discusses something really important. And the reason it's called Absolute Value is because what it's saying is that people can now experience you before they experience you by investigating and following the conversation between people who've already experienced you. So your current customers, experts, on and on and so forth. Someone writes a blog about your product. People can go on the internet and they can discover you far more easily than they ever could. These technologies, these Yelps, these review sites, these social media conversations, on and on and so forth. Even your own website where you're posting testimonials and reviews and case stories. The point of Absolute Value is that you're not controlling the message as much as you think you are. And really, having an online presence is really encouraging other people's online presence to circle around you, to have conversations about you.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, and it really is like that. You cannot control your online presence. In the way that you can't choose to have one or not to have one. You're going to have one. The first time somebody is annoyed with you and puts a review up on a review site, the first time somebody blogs about you, the first time somebody puts a report into the Better Business Bureau and it's up there, that's out there. That's right. Online. They have invested, and if you haven't bothered to create your own presence, your own ability to have your say, it's not that this is the only thing that's going to have anything said about you. It's whether you have a say or whether you leave it entirely in the hands of others what is said about you online. Because
that's an amazingly critical point to make. That is an extremely important point for people to latch onto, and that is that whether you want to be there or not, someone's going to say something about you. But you also speak to something that's really important, and this gets talked about quite a bit with the folks that we circle around in Google Plus, and that is transparency, but more doing the right thing. So as a business years ago, you could sort of be a little bit on the sleazy side, and for the most part, get away with it. You know, while people did talk and your reputation got built, it happened at a much slower pace. Nowadays, if you don't do the right thing, if you don't serve the needs of the customers well, people are going to hear about it. They're going to hear about it in a really bad way, and they're going to hear about it extremely quickly. It's not hard to launch a blog. It's not hard to make a post on Facebook. It's not hard to post a scathing review on Google Plus, on and so forth. So the imperative now is to understand just what you said as it relates to me, the most important thing is serving the people that buy from you. And that has become even more important because, as you just said, even if you don't have an online presence, you do. Because you're not controlling it. Someone else is out there. A lot of people are out there, most likely buying from you. That's an incredibly important point of view.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things from the audience. Nazim said that the same thing happens in Italy, that there's a lot of businesses still not investing in the web. But I'm pretty sure that you see exactly. Italy has some fast internet access. It really does. So, you know what? The customers are using the internet. It's the businesses that are dragging their heels. And it is going to cost them. We are going to see a lot more businesses going to the wall that don't get it. I think what's interesting to look at is when you look at Apple and Google and other places that go from online to stores, they're focusing on the experience in store as well. They're turning their store into an experience. And I think that is absolutely where we all need to go with our real world businesses. That the real world is about the service, about the experience of being there, about the atmosphere, because otherwise most of us would rather buy online. And the only other thing that we go to a store for is to carry it home that day, instant gratification, rather than waiting for it to be posted.
What you're saying now is, to me, as critical a point as we've made in the last 3 sessions, because I just don't see a lot of businesses fully comprehending that, yeah, they have a website. They've even crafted the message. Most of the time it's completely, neutral. It doesn't do much for their business anyways. They're not paying attention to what's happening outside, and so they're not focused on that experience. That experience is key, critical, job one. And the primary reason is because even if you have a rock solid website, even if you have a bunch of likes on Facebook and whatnot, the real value in what's happening here is word of mouth. And so that experience, you want to leverage and amplify that out on the internet. How do you do that? Well, start with giving what people need. Provide that service. If your product promises something, deliver. Recently I downloaded that ebook that we talked about, and it was horrible. And I immediately wrote a comment on Facebook. I've immediately had a post on Google Plus because they promised me something they didn't deliver, and you can't risk that. You just can't. You gotta be on top of it. You're not gonna please everybody. It's nearly impossible to make sure that you manage that entirely, but you've got to do your best. Start with the focus of your business on fulfilling the promise of your product or service, because it affects your online presence. I think the piece that's critical is everybody thinks an online presence is, I got a Twitter, I got a LinkedIn, I got a Facebook page, I got some likes, I got a blog, and I got a website. I'm online. Yeah. No.
Absolutely wrong. For most businesses, honestly, they're wasting their time on social media. They're focusing on the wrong parts of it. They're doing what they like instead of what actually makes a difference. Social media is, it's easy, it's instant gratification. It gives us the feeling, oh look, I'm reaching these people, I'm having great conversations, people are engaging, they're like me. Well, if what you needed was confidence, then that's great. Social media may be helping your business because it's giving you the confidence. But what you're doing on social media usually isn't doing what you think it is. And great, you've reached 20 people, or maybe you've reached 100 people. How many pluses did your last post get? More importantly, how many great conversations did that last post start? Because it's probably less than 50. If you're one of the A-listers, it's probably less than 50. And that's
100%.
not engagement. Your site is supposed to reach thousands, and it should do. There's no reason your site will not reach thousands.
That is 100% correct. As in fact, we look at the online landscape, social media obviously is a big component of it, and we'll talk about it. I'm not sure which session coming up, 2 or 3 down the road here. But the idea is that it's engagement, but it's engagement with the right people in the right way, around a solid understanding of why the people that buy from you are on social networks to begin with. And businesses have to understand that really their social presence, their online presence, plus their social presence isn't really about them bombarding people. It's about facilitating that conversation, whether it's on their page or otherwise. It's the conversation that's really important. Engagement, conversation, whatever discussion. I'll give you an example. I was in Lowe's, and I was looking for this product that was a radar system for scaring mice away. And I'm in the store, and I see a box, and the box says everything I need it to say. It tells me the product does what I want it to do. I just whip out my iPhone, and I enter the product into search, and I get all the opinions I need to tell me that I'm not buying this product. Because whatever was on the box that was created by the marketing people, not relevant to me anymore. Because what's inside the box didn't please the last 40 people that bought it. And these things are critical. They're extremely important. And I'm not necessarily sure that marketers are paying attention to this. Small businesses, for sure, aren't necessarily paying attention to this, but it's happening. You can do any number of things anywhere you are, on the go, on the fly. Restaurants, for example. I'm walking down the street. I see someplace I had never eaten at. I'm hungry. Before I go in there, I just do a little search on the restaurant, see what the reviews were, and that's how people are making the decisions. And the internet, that's why I started this way. This part of the conversation is the internet is changing the way people make decisions. It's changing the way people make choices. And businesses have to comprehend this. They have to. They don't have a choice, because if they don't start thinking of this now, they're going to be way, they're already behind. They're going to be even further behind 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years from now. Right?
Yeah. Brian Shea in the audience said, don't forget the first word of social media, the social part. He says he's not following shoe stores or dentists. And this is a huge point. There's a lot of people we don't want to socialize with. Now, you can socialize as an individual, but that's not necessarily going to help your business. Or you can act as a business, and probably nobody's actually going to want to follow you very much. All those selfies from the Undertakers, not necessarily what we want this week. There's an element of personal branding you can do, but a lot of social media is not helping your business. It should be the last thing. It's the amplification system. Social media is for one simple thing. When you're a business, it's for listening. It's for listening to dissatisfied customers. That's what you should be doing on social media, and then engaging with those and trying to make it right. Anything else you're doing, it might get you some links, it might not. Do you know what? There's better ways of doing it.
So depending upon the business type, I would only challenge one thing, and that is that I'm starting to experiment with this myself with some of my clients. But someone mentioned a dentist, and for sure, most people aren't following a dentist on Facebook because they want articles about how to floss your teeth and cavities and tooth decay. There's some educational content that helps families and whatnot, and it gets some engagement. But really what a dentist needs to be doing, as any local business needs to be doing, is using their Facebook page like businesses did 50 years ago. They just got out and met the community. A church is social. A nonprofit is social. What's happening at the schools is social. How about socializing with other businesses? You share someone else's post. I just ate at a restaurant. This restaurant is great. Now you're providing some service outside of dentistry to the community, saying, hey, I just ate here, and I had a really good meal. You should try this. Like a mini Angie's List, right? These are my top picks. But this isn't going to guarantee dental appointments. What it is building community relationships with people, because at the end of the day, those people at some point are going to need a dentist. And if you're top of mind because of your engagement with the community, surely you're in the top 3, at least top 2. And so that you're instead of putting a billboard on the side of the highway for your awareness, you should be using social media to engage people in conversations around you. Sometimes about dentistry, it doesn't hurt, but certainly more in line with how do I help other people get their word out? How do I talk about my experiences in the community? That's really what, to me, social is all about. quite frankly, across many businesses, not just dentistry. It just happens to be one of the things I do. But even for me, I'm interested in, talking about marketing and some technical stuff, but really meeting people, engaging with people, letting those people understand who I am. And that's all part of your presence. It shows people, by the way, I will say this one point and then I'll let you talk. It shows people that you're not all about you, that you're also all about what's happening around you. And quite frankly, if you're a community business, there really isn't anything more important than the community.
Yeah, I'd certainly say that's true. And I like to see cause marketing for that kind of business where, particularly, if you're a dentist, what are you doing about better education for children? What are you doing for family stuff? Because families are your market. You can certainly be talking about presentation skills because, again, people with a good set of teeth are often also interested in other aspects of their presentation, their appearance. So,
100%. Yeah, I'm working with an accountant, the AICPA in America, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. They have a whole program on financial literacy. And on their website, if you're a member, they facilitate all these presentations for accountants to go out and educate the community. They do these volunteer efforts. And I introduced my client to the superintendent of schools in a town near her office, and she's literally going to do a series of courses for the community at the school. So what I'm doing is I'm using the school to help the school build a presence using the accountant as the offer. So one of the sessions will be local businesses and financial literacy. So for business owners, but it'll be at the school. So I'm connecting businesses with the accountant, with the cause or the school to build a community outreach program. Well, I mean, this is going to go a long way on social. Her picture is going to be taken with the superintendent of schools for the newspaper because he wants the story out in the public. This is an awareness campaign built on offering time or money to a community-based cause where you can then rally around other businesses. And it's already starting to show results from the perspective of people are already talking about it, and it hasn't even started yet. And when we talk about social, and when we go on to social, and we start referencing, hey, this is what we're doing, it's a social post, it's a social thread. It's a conversation about something other than your taxes, which who wants to talk about their taxes on Facebook, Nobody.
Exactly. And it's an interesting thing that dentists, lawyers, accountants, they are three professions that we don't tend to socialize with much unless you are one. The first thing most of us do if we need one of those is ask our friends. We're not going to be doing a search for a dentist until after we've asked people we know who they use. We're certainly not going to be doing a search. I've just been charged with a serious crime. Do I want to know who Google ranks top, or do I want to know who somebody I know says is a damn good lawyer? And
correct.
Most of the time I'm going to go with my references first, and then I'm going to look them up. And this is
correct.
One of those stages of presence is that a lot of interest in you starts with word of mouth, and then they go to your website. I hear a conversation at the water cooler about a company, or my friend says they've just bought something from a company. First thing I can do on my mobile is look up that company because I might want to bookmark it for later. I'm certainly going to be interested. So bear in mind, a lot of the time the referrals to your website can be from word of mouth, and your site should always gear to that as a primary source of where traffic can come from.
So for the businesses that I serve, and I think just about any local business and really big business, I could argue this point with regards to big businesses as well, but referrals are the key, right? Because it speaks to a lot of things. It speaks that you're fulfilling the promise of what you said you were going to do, and you're focused on making people happy. So if you're getting a lot of referrals and word of mouth type marketing, it means you're doing something right. But for professional service providers, it's 85% of the people polled in these different surveys and studies. They say, how do you buy this? They say, we go to a referral. The internet comes down. It's important. It's number two. We go to the internet and maybe do a search. But even if somebody ranks, let's say you spend money on search engine optimization and you're ranking on page one, your website's all set up, everything's great. They search, they come up with 3 or 4 options. Guess what they do? They pick up the phone. and they call somebody. Have you ever heard of this guy? On a rare occasion, they'll call just because that maybe that person doesn't know anybody that knows you or whatever. But mostly people are going to want to hear what's going on, what's being talked about in the community. So as I was referencing what to do on social, the whole idea is to make sure that by the time that person picks up the phone to call somebody, that dentist, accountant, or lawyer, or any professional that I serve has that good, positive, yes, I like them. Yes, you know what, they're doing some really good work here. They must be a decent person. Hey, I know someone that they did some work for. You know, they did some great work. Give them a call. But they're part of the community conversation, right? It's not about a promotion. It's about a conversation. And that's what's important about being online, you know, is being part of that conversation. Quite frankly, even content. You know, if your content's good enough, people want to have a conversation around it. You know, it's not just about consuming. It's about are they talking about it? You know, are they sharing it? Are they saying, hey, you really need to check this out? You know, to me, that's what it's all about. For the businesses that I serve, that's really that's critical, right? Priority, right? That's the priority to me. So, what's the matter?
Nothing. Just waiting for you to take a breath so I could get a word in.
This is obviously.
I'll let you talk in a minute. One sentence and he jumps back in.
Listen to me. This is you obviously hit a passion button of mine, okay? I just think that businesses really need to understand this. All right, so let's talk about topic 3, the key components, okay? Yeah. Let's just get to the key components. And I will also tell people that currently my elbow is on fire because it's jamming into my desk as I'm trying to hold this phone still, and I can't let it down because the charger is in it. So I just want everybody to know that I'm actually suffering through this physically, with physical pain, in order to get through this session with Ammon Johns.
Yeah, we're waiting for the camera to start shaking later. Yeah, we're waiting for that. That's going to be the highlight.
So we talk about the key components. We've already highlighted a number of them. We're talking a little bit about, you know, the principles that are in play. Down the road, we're going to talk about the details. But let's talk about, you talk about here a rough scale of levels of an online presence. Where let me just talk through them quickly, and I'll let you go through each one. Findable, discoverable, topical, a local landmark, topic expert, internet landmark. So let's talk about each one of those. Let's talk about findable.
Okay, this is the first one. Somebody's just mentioned your company. Somebody said about your company, or you remember going past it on the bus or in your car. You put that business into a search engine, can they find you? Or you hear about a company, if they put yourcompany.com, are they going to find you? Or are they going to find something that leads them to you? So that's stage 1. If you're not findable, you might as well not be on there at all. They're going to find something about you probably, but it's not going to be yours. You're not getting a say. Now, the basics are findable. You can include things like Yelp and the Yellow Pages, but as we said, it's not perfect. But at least it's there. There is something findable.
Yeah, my own personal perception when I'm looking for something, if I don't find their website and all I find them is in a directory, I don't consider them a serious business. And I really am looking for someone else's real estate. That's really what I'm looking for. And maybe it's conscious, maybe because I'm in this business, but that's my impression. If you just show up on my search results in a directory and you don't have a link to a website or anything, I just don't consider you to be a serious business.
Is that still going to be true of people like tradesmen, where a lot of the websites, you know what, they're not so great. You know, if they've got a website, it probably is from their internet provider, and a glossy website doesn't tell you that much. You kind of want that Yelp listing sometimes for those. Yep. Personally, I like both. I like there to be a Yelp listing and for me to be able to go through to their website and see that they're credible as well. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, no, I'm arguing for both. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I didn't mean to say one or the other. It's both. And in fact, if you bring up the tradesmen, one of the things that I'm going to start talking to a few people in my area who are now talking to me outside of the industries I serve, you know, electrician or whatever, is, okay, you're doing okay, but since no one else in your business is doing what I'm telling you to do, you're going to elevate your game. You're going to now your website being a little bit nicer is going to be a competitive differentiator. You know, when you greet people with information. You know, by the way, every tradesman should have a blog. It's a no-brainer because they're experts. You know, they're house tips. You know, how to avoid this plumbing disaster, right? It's an easy thing to do if they sit down and understand how to do it. And when someone finds it, they're like, wow, this is great. you know, this plumber really understands, you know, what they're talking about, and I love the fact that they're giving me this information. So let me just touch on one thing, findable. We didn't talk that much about online advertising. I know we will down the road a bit, but in terms of being findable, there is a component to online that does speak to advertising. I think advertising the right way, whether it's on social or otherwise, in terms of building brand awareness. So you're findable based on the fact that you're already in that top 10 list because of the fact that you keep showing up over and over again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And where advertising would play into findable would be, you know, those ads you can have which got your phone number and they can call you straight away. That would be findable where you wouldn't necessarily need a website. But you know what? Most of the time, they're only going to call if they can only find you in search. They're not finding your site. They're finding an ad. That's not going to convert unless you're a brand they already know, unless they feel that they've got that commitment ability right there and then. Everyone else, they're going to want to check them out. They're going to want to check the details. So at this stage, I wouldn't say ads come in particularly. You know, when we get into discoverable, it starts to help a bit more. So
that's what I was going to say. That's a good transition into discoverable. So what's discoverable?
So discoverable is when people that are researching the general topic or field of your expertise are able to find you. They can discover you in the course of their research. So I'm interested in digital photography, and when I start doing searches about digital photography, I'm finding you then. Maybe not, you know, the top ranked, but in the course of my research, as I'm going through, that's when I discover your site.
And we can't undersell or underestimate the power of the impression, right? I'll give you an interesting sort of a statistic, not a statistic as much as a buying process. So for professional service providers, let's use a lawyer as an example. What they've studied and what they've now understood is, or understand to be true, is that people that are going to buy a lawyer, they start with a list of 5 or 10, right? That list is built based on presence, being present somewhere, one way or another. It's an industry expertise or whatever. Yeah. You're already on that list, and so the people off that list don't have a chance. So this idea of presence, discoverable, being discovered, even if they're not ready to buy, the fact that you keep showing up every time someone does this search from an online perspective means that you're starting to make that list, and that list is really, really important, because that's how buyers are buying. And my guess is that's the same no matter what the business. You know, it's people have a list that because they keep seeing these things over and over and over again, right?
Yeah. And often let's take that lawyer example. What are the searches they're doing before they're looking for a lawyer? You know, what's the thing when they first know they're being charged and they want to know how serious those charges are? What are they searching for to find that information? This is the first place ideally you'd want to be discovered, because if they're hearing about you then and they're hearing about you later and then you come up as one of the options mentioned by their, you got it made. You've been found and mentioned again and again, and what they get to is the point, everywhere I go I'm hearing about this company, they must be great.
That's the number 3, the topical part, and I posted something quick today about David Amerland's semantic search book. Was when I read it, you know, I'm not an SEO expert. I know enough just to have a conversation. But when I read that book, what jumped out at me is what you're talking about here is there's an ecosystem, right? It's the thoughts, the daily habits of the people you're trying to sell to. They need things. They need things that are related to you, and they need things that aren't related to you. The best thing you can do is become part of that world so that you're in it and you make that list. So by the time they need someone, you're on that list. You know, we can't underestimate the power of recall bias, right? Hey, this is who I remember. They must be good. You know, our own biases fool us. They might not be good, but they're there. They're on your mind. So what you're talking about is really understanding who you're selling to and building an online presence that meets them even when they don't need the specific service that you're providing. Maybe it's related. Maybe it's a nonlinear progression back to the service you provide, right? This is, by the way, this is also why the cause thing is such a great thing. Because people that you're serving, I'm using dogs as an example. They like dogs. Well, dog owners need a dentist. So you're connecting with them on something other than dentistry, but know that at some point they will need a dentist. That's the point.
That can certainly help. that's kind of more point 4. Let's get back to point 3. Point 3 is topical. That you want to know about semantic search, you're gonna find David Amalant. There's no two ways about it. You know, he has dominated that niche, that topic. If you are interested in SEO, I can name the top 100 companies that, you know, everyone is going to find at least one of those companies in the course of their research, no matter how they get into it. You know, obviously, Moz is going to be mentioned somewhere along the line. So, understanding that, you know, it's within topic, we're not going off topic yet. We don't want to be turning up for dogs if we're a dentist. What we're saying is, anybody who's interested in dentistry is going to hear about this company because they run a leading dental blog, or they've got a leading dental newsletter, or they are known to all the other dentists from their conferences, and the other dentists say what a great company this is. So that kind of thing. They might run apprenticeships that train people in dentistry and are well known for whatever, but it's within the topic. Where we start to break out of that is where we think ahead. We do the Google Now thing. We think of the context of the user. Classic example I use for this, I used AdWords years ago for a mortgage company. And this mortgage company knew exactly which kind of properties they wanted to be providing mortgages for. And that meant that we could pick by neighbourhood. This was a London company. We know that within this postcode, almost every single property is a perfect one for them. So what we did was we targeted the house hunting searches for those areas. They don't need a mortgage yet. They're still looking to see what houses are available. But we used pay-per-click ads so that we were appearing there, clearly identifying that we were doing mortgages. We weren't trying to get clicks. This is the sneaky bit. We were letting people know that we specialised in mortgages for houses in this area. And you know, we did great deals. We didn't want people clicking. We were getting free impressions.
Impressions. That's a great point.
We had to pay Google more per click because, you know, we weren't getting a lot of click-throughs. And that's okay, because we're not having to pay Google more because nobody's clicking it. We're making clear we're not offering houses. We're not selling properties. We had to make sure we got just enough clicks to stay relevant.
You're related.
Yeah, not saying how we did that, but we made sure we stayed in those results. By the time they had finally found a house, settled on a house, really, what they remembered is they'd been seeing us everywhere. They'd been seeing us everywhere. We weren't getting click fraud from rivals because they weren't bidding on the houses. They wanted to be on the mortgage searches. They were only worried about the mortgage searches. They weren't worried about the property searches, but we knew that people searching for those properties would later be searching for a mortgage. By the time that happened, they'd been seeing us everywhere.
Yeah, that's the thing. They've been seeing us everywhere, you know, and that's really the key, is to find out, you know, what are those related topics that are within the topic that you can surface, that you keep building that impression that, yeah, this is the person that, this is where I want to be. Of course, going back to that concept of a niche audience from session 2, it's helpful because it almost automatically happens when you're in a niche. And it's one of the, by the way, the values of a niche is that, you know, you become sort of a go-to, but you also surround yourself in that language, in the topical language. It's the things that they need across the board. You know, you just keep showing up, and I think that's
Imagine you're a lawyer who specialises in defending people who are involved in road traffic accidents. Well, the place you want to be starting to turn up is in the places to get dents knocked out of cars.
Just gonna say,
where can I find a mechanic?
Correct.
Those kind of searches indicate that they're doing the most immediate thing first, and then they may be looking for a lawyer or seeing whether they're entitled to some sort of compensation or representation. By turning up in those early places, by having good relationship with the garages that you're sending people to, with the you know, that kind of thing, that's a great place. If you were a tool shop, you sell all kinds of tools, looking for those early DIY projects, you know, better ways to paint your house, how to fix a skirting board, how to repair a doghouse, anything like that, and helping people with the plans and things. guess what? They're going to be knowing your company and related to your company before they need that next big expensive tool.
Now, and the way I'm explaining this to a dentist is someone's buying a house from some other community. They're going to need a dentist, but before they need you, they need to buy a house. So when someone searches for properties, you got to be in that area. So I'm encouraging them to build relationships with realtors, on and so forth. But we're also talking about that online component, where you're showing up for these particular keyword chains, and they just keep seeing you throughout that entire process. Because obviously, someone moving to the town from another town or another state, they need a dentist. So why not show up in those related searches?
Exactly. And it's one of those ones. Make a guide to your local neighborhood with all the restaurants, with the schools, with that kind of information that people moving into the area are doing. If your neighborhood has already got lots of those and they're well covered, see if they accept guest posts. Not for links, but to get your name there known to people who are doing their research before they move in.
Yeah, I heard someone, fairly prominent figure, one day say, I don't encourage guest posting in local because local links matter for nothing. And I immediately thought to myself, well, no, it's not about the link. I encourage, by the way, my dental client who still doesn't get it to have a yoga instructor come on and guest post on their blog, right? To have the fitness guy down the street come on and post something about their business or something health related, something exercise related, how to lose weight on a nutritionist, if you will, because they're businesses that are now bridging the gap. They're aligning with each other, overlapping audiences, and they're doing it with an online presence. And this is, you make this point, and it's funny because I don't think you and I have ever talked about this, but it's amazing because I came to that conclusion a little while ago, a couple of years ago anyways. And it's amazing to me how many small local businesses don't understand the relevance of that. Why would that make a difference? Well, by the way, offline, it makes a difference. If you're a bridal shop, have a dentist come in to give a speech or a lecture on, teeth whitening before a wedding. But the bridal shop is sponsoring the event, on and so forth. But you're building these relationships. A blog is a great way to do that. So is online. Really, in search. Yeah. By the way, I will also tell you, funny enough, I'm creating a mini Angie's List page for my clients. I finally got them to understand what I mean by this. But what you're talking about is when someone comes to a community and they search for something and they find my dentist website, they're going to see a button that says you're new to the community. Click on that button and there's a whole page of restaurants, service professionals, service providers, things that people that we endorse. Here you go. Government officials, because now you're providing a service that's unrelated to dentistry. I'm welcoming you to the community. Yeah. They're going to need it.
Yeah, absolutely. But the first thing is going to be checking, is there still a market for that information? If there isn't, go to where is already the market for that information, the local guide, whatever site dominates the region, even if it's your local newspaper, get in there. That's where people are going to need to go before they know they need a dentist. So
correct.
That's where we're going.
Yeah, no, those are the best places. Those are the best places to do ads. In fact, I encourage my clients to get involved with the schools for that very reason. It's one of the first things, particularly families do when they move to a community, is they meet the schools. They find out what's going to happen to my children on a day-to-day basis. So it's good for the professionals to be involved with the school system for that very reason, both on and offline, by the way. Yeah. But yeah, in terms of advertising and things like that, those directories that have those resources, it's a great place to be because they're going to go there first. You're 100% right.
Jeff Bond says, thanks, Vin, and don't forget home inspectors while you're at it, and he'll make sure they get to the right dentist once they're safely settled in their new home.
Well, actually, building a relationship with a home inspector would be a great thing for a dentist to do because he's doing home inspections for people that are presumably moving. Yeah. That's a great relationship to start. Jeff, I'll talk to you after.
Even, if you're a doctor, a dentist, you should be talking to the local realtors. You should be talking to the people selling the houses in the first place because they can give a welcome pack. Give the realtors a welcome pack to give to new people that move in. It's a great freebie for them to give. It's a value extra for them, and nice.
100%. I literally just said this to a realtor yesterday. I said, if my client were to give you a packet to make you look good, to your clients? Would that be something you're interested in? And she said, absolutely.
Yeah.
No brainer. The dentist is working hard to make a referral source look good in the community. Well, that referral source is going to reciprocate. And so where are we at? We're at the local landmark, I think.
Yeah. And this is where you really start to dominate a niche within the topic. So, you know, you might be an ultimate expert on tooth decay as a dentist. You might be one of the top blogs on DUI problems. You know, you've really dominated a niche. It may be that it's a blog and you dominate you know, that niche on Google entirely. It may be that you are the person everyone thinks of on a social media platform. Whatever, somehow you have got to the position where people equate you to this as a leading expert. As we were saying, semantic search, David Ameland. That's where you're going.
I'm creating a microsite for one of my clients just on cosmetic dentistry in the region because he's one of the few cosmetic dentists in the area that he serves. And just for that point, I'm saying when people need this, I want you to show up, but I want it to be separate from the rest of your website. I want it to cater just to them, very, very specifically. But it's the same point. It's the same exact idea, and that is this local landmark notion is that you become the go-to. On a more global level, there's a blog out there for lawyers called the China Law Blog. That's all it is. It's the law on how to do business in China. It's the China Law Blog. You talk about it's a global landmark. It's one of the few out there. If you search anything on doing business in China, they're going to show up. And that's all they do. Their whole blog, their whole website is set up to answer those questions for people, right? So, again, I always talk about niche and why niche is so important in terms of an online message, because you really speak to people. But these ideas that you're coming up with here, in some variation I'm doing them, but I'm also adding a lot to my repertoire, my own repertoire, just thinking about placement of ads and things like that, and the kinds of things that someone can do to get ahead of the game in terms of I'm looking at something that's related to what you do, so I'd like to see you there. I'm buying a house, are you going to be there? I'm doing this, are you going to be there? I'm going to get married, are you going to be there? You know, I need my teeth, you know, fixed before I get married, right? So, yeah, very, very useful. Really, this is extremely useful. Topic expert also is related to that, because I think being a topical expert helps with the landmark, correct?
Yeah, but when we're talking topic expert, I mean global scale. Search, Google. Books, Amazon. Auctions, eBay. We're talking global scale that no matter where you talk to somebody in the world, you're somebody they're thinking of. So, yeah, you know, Rand Fishkin is always going to come up on a discussion about SEO, no matter what country you're in, no matter what market you're in. Whereas, you know, the local landmark and that would be looking for a local SEO. You know, who's Canada's top SEO rather than who does everyone in the world recognize as something.
Yeah, I mean, Rand has a first name kind of a thing. You know, he's like Prince. You say Rand in the online marketing world, everybody knows who you're talking about. I mean, that's just the brand that he's built for himself, right?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is not a bad thing to even model in terms of local as well. But you certainly, that's the objective, is to, I remember someone recently said to me, take a poll, go to the mall and take a poll, say the dentist's name and see what people, you know, name association, see what people think. And that'll tell the dentist what his or her personal brand is in the community. But you want that name recognition, right? And you can do this with a great online presence and also by being that topical expert.
Yeah.
I like that.
The final one, the top of the scale, is internet landmark. And there are some companies that are the Amazons, the Googles. You know, Google is known to people who have never touched the internet. You can go to Africa to somebody who has never seen firsthand a computer and they've already heard of Google.
Critical, though. Really, so many points I want to bold in the last hour. We're almost done here. But that's critical. You know, that's the idea, that everybody knows who you are. You know, that's it. if you could sum it up, you know, in terms of an online presence, Ammon, it's everybody just knows who you are, and that's really what you're after. Is you're trying to build a recognition so that for this particular thing, you're the go-to, you know, because people just know, you know, whether they search or otherwise, they just know.
Yeah, absolutely. And a group called Help a Reporter Out, HARO, used to be very good for being able to connect with people as a subject matter expert for the major media. And that can still be a very important thing. You know, if you've got a dental practice in an area, would the local paper come to you if they had a story that was something to do with dentistry that they could do with some advice on? Or are you known for something else in the community that they would be coming to you and you could be a community resource? These kind of abilities to think and network are critical.
Extremely, and all so many things. We're actually going to branch off now in the.
Nope, we've lost Vin. That's not good. Either his elbow has just given out or his phone has. Oh, there he is. He's back again. Did you shake your elbow too much, you wimp? Come on. You back? He's there. Well, I don't know if he can hear us, but we'll find out in a minute. I don't know. We let him have it easy this week. I was going to make him stand up with his arms straight out. You know, no resting his elbow on the desk. You back yet? We can't hear you. Yeah, great. Okay, so we've lost the host. So I was thinking, let's turn this show into something completely different. Oh, no, I think he's noticed that one. So, let me just... Sorry, I'm getting comments and Vin's still looking slightly panicked there. Don't worry, Vin. Have we got sound yet? No. Okay, so Scott Scowcraft in the audience says, takeaway, selfies from the Undertaker, not what we want this week. Some business, it's best maybe to be listening, getting out there to meet the community. If you're top of mind because of your social media engagement, maybe that's enough. I would probably say, Scott, that you want it to be more than just from social media, but it's a start. You know, your reviews are going to count at least as much, if not more. You remember what I was saying earlier about somebody mentions a dentist because I've asked for a recommendation. I'm going to check their website. If the first thing I do when I search for that business is I get to their website and there's lots of them posting cat pictures and pictures of their dinner and a lot of stuff that isn't related to dentistry, it's going to make me think, oh, maybe they're ranking because of that and not because they're any good as a lawyer, as a dentist. So be careful, and this is what I was hinting at in the comments earlier when I said sometimes you can actually have too much presence or the wrong kind of presence. There are also tire kickers. You can sometimes be turning up for things that you don't do. A case in point years ago was a guy who sold video recorders back in those days. And, you know, he wanted to be #1 for videos. I said, well, A, you don't actually sell the videos, you only sell the machines to play them. You can't even go for video players because half of those are software, and believe me, you do not want to rank generally for videos because a lot of people aren't after the kind you buy. They want a certain kind of website. And, you know, when they say blue videos, they don't mean that it comes in a blue box. So, you know, what you want to be going for, the important searches for you are when people are doing make model. When people are doing make or model, they've actually got an intention to buy. Otherwise, they're tire kickers, and you don't want all of them coming up. I think we've got Vin's sound back. You back?
Well, I just shifted to my other computer, so just so I can have sound. I don't know what happened to my phone, so I apologize for that. I was in the middle of saying something, and somebody called. Yeah. Thanks for carrying on. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. For anyone who thinks, wow, what's happened? I was so used to the narrow box that now Vin's head looks really wide. No, it actually looks like that. That is.
This is the life scale version of my head. Well, So I don't. Next week we're going to start the. We're going to continue the series. I think we're going to talk about websites, and I got some summaries coming from the other sessions, and I'll do the same here. But we're just going to dive into some detail on websites. We'll probably review a lot of what we talked about today. But man, there were a lot of great points that came out of this, even for me. I hope people were taking notes, because some of the things you said about getting semantically engaged, I think is critical.
Yeah, and we talked about the fact that the whole thing needs to work. We need to understand how people are relating, where they're going for their information, how they find us. The fact that we need visibility and relevance and context to all of this. It's not just one thing or another. We need to put all the pieces together, and in the coming weeks we'll be talking about the individual pieces and how they fit.
Perfect. Well, sorry about the technical difficulties, folks, but a lot of good content came out of this conversation, so hopefully that was worth your time, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.